Hello and welcome to another World of Warplanes video with me, Sir 10 Death. Today we're taking a look at a multi-role fighter from the British tech tree, and it's the Tier 5 Hawker Hurricane Mark II. And I got this as part of the Skies of Albion event, and I've only played it once or twice, and I've finally got around to the last 2 or 3 days of playing it a handful more times to basically make a fair judgment about how this plane performs. As ever, there will be some gameplay footage going on in the background while I have a talk about what this plane does well, maybe what its limitations are, and whether it's worth pursuing the multi-role line from the British tech tree from the Blackburn skewer onwards. I do also have the Hurricane 1, but I've been playing this one more, so I will get round to doing a Hurricane 1 review at some point quite in the near future. And I've also got the Tornado, the one that follows this Tier 6, which again I will get some footage of that out in the forthcoming weeks or so. So as ever, I've got myself kitted up here with a little bit of a snazzy paint job. I have to say mine is quite an upgraded model, and I'll talk about the gun armament and the changes you can make to this plane as we go through the video. But it is worth noting I am using the top spec guns on this, but we're going to talk about the pros and cons of that choice a little bit later as well. So off we go into the gameplay then, and it's a multi-role. So let's talk about it. Well, when you get the plane as stock, it has 220 hit points, which at Tier 5 is not bad, it's okay. It's middle of the road. If you when you change the airframe to the upgraded one, then that goes up to 240 hit points. The manoeuvrability rating of this plane out of the box is 64, which for a multi-role is again fairly average. It's not as nippy as a light fighter, but then again it's not a light fighter. And that can and will stay at 64 when you upgrade the guns once. However, if you upgrade the guns to the top ones, the ones I've got on this, it drops from 64 down to 58. So it is worth noting that there is a little bit of a price to pay. For increased armament, you suffer a little bit in terms of your manoeuvrability. So that's a choice you might have to think about with this plane. Similarly, its turn is actually 10.3 seconds, which is reasonable, that's okay. But again, that will slow down to 10.8 seconds if you go for the biggest weapons that this plane can carry. That's worth noting. It has a suggested fighting altitude of around about 1,000 meters, which I'm playing just below that at the moment. And it's not the quickest plane. It ticks over normally at around 280 or so kilometers an hour when not boosting. And when you do boost, it'll push up to a little over 350 to 360ish. When you upgrade the engines, that stock 280 or so will go to around 300. So it's not the fastest plane, but it'll get from A to B fairly enough. So let's talk about those guns then. I've alluded to them once or twice already in this video. And when you first get the plane, actually, it's okay. It starts off with 8.303 guns, which is very similar to what you have on a Spitfire. Now, this shouldn't really be compared to a Spitfire directly, because the Spitfire is a lot more manoeuvrable and much more of a nippier plane. This is not quite the same, but it's got similar armament. 8.303s as stock is very, very workable. You can go to work with those, and therefore the grind is quite a pleasant one. You don't have to worry about playing with some undergunned plane for a while you're trying to get some better guns. Choices you've got to make then. When you upgrade your guns, you can go from 8.303s to having 12.303s, and you will not suffer any penalty to your manoeuvrability or your speed or your turn time. However, if, as I've done, you decide to take the second gun upgrade and you go for the 4 20mm cannons, then you do become a slower aircraft, a less manoeuvrable aircraft with a longer turn time. So it's a bit of a trade-off. If you want the guns that can put out large damage, you become a little bit more of a sitting duck for light fighters. If you want guns that are much quicker firing and do a smaller amount of damage but more rapidly, but retain a little bit of manoeuvrability, you might want to stick with the 8 and then the 12.303s. I haven't yet personally decided which is the better of the two options. I've gone for the cannons for now, and I'm trying them out. That's largely because I'm trying to develop my cannon play significantly as well, and I find that they work perfectly fine. Other things worth noting then is the outboard ordnance. As stock, it carries none, but again you can pay some experience points, and you can therefore unlock the option to have either 2 250 kilogram bombs, which is what I've got on here, or you can carry 4 RP3 rockets. I tend to normally favour bombs over rockets, and as I've said in some of my earlier videos, when I'm using multi-roles, I don't go looking for reasons to use them. I tend to find if I go into bombing range deliberately, I'm just putting myself at risk of being shot down. what I do with the bombs is normally, if I see a target of opportunity, if I happen to be flying past a part of an airbase or a part of a garrison which is heavily damaged, and I know I can finish it off by dumping my bombs on it as I'm going past anyway, then I'll tend to use them for that. But I tend to play my multi-roles more almost as fighters that can also support when needed. I've just taken a bit of damage here now, and I'm struggling to stay in the game a little bit because I've got somebody trying to take me out of it. But I'm just hanging in there by a wing and a prayer. So in terms of how this game's going, well, this game's going alright. I haven't actually looked at it. We've just passed 6,000 combat points and there we've just been knocked out of the sky there. I did take quite a bit of damage early on, you would have seen, because I got into a ramming contest with somebody. I probably could have put some effort into getting out of the way, but I like to try the planes out and see what they can and can't do. I wouldn't recommend ramming other planes in fighters as a general rule. In a big heavy fighter, fair enough, or in a bomber or something, you'd probably get away with it, but with a smaller, multi-roles or light fighter is not necessarily a good plan. But he was heading straight towards me, and I just wanted to wonder what happens, who comes off worse. So it was kind of a deliberate choice that I made here. So I'm going in here towards this area to. We've actually got this area capped, but they've got two ground aircraft down here who are trying to obviously turn it red and make it an enemy area. So I'm going to go and try and get rid of these guys. Things worth noting about this plane then. Well, firstly, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very pleasant grind to play. It's a nice plane. When you get it out of the box, when you unlock it, it's a nice plane to play with. And it's pretty versatile. It can do a bit of everything quite well. It's not going to be as good at dogfighting as a Spitfire or something. It's not going to be as good at damaging ground areas as a ground attack aircraft or a heavy fighter. But it's a good it's why it's called a multi-role, because it's got multiple roles and it can do them all pretty well. And I actually like it. I think it's an enjoyable plane. It's one of the ones that will be staying in my garage here, even when I've already got the Tornado, as I said, because I got it as part of the Skies of Albion event, but I'll be keeping this plane. And you can see how much damage you can do there. When I finally got that attack aircraft in my sights there, I just took half of his hit points straight down with a quick burst from these 20mm guns, and he's actually flown to the ground there. So I've just passed 8,500 combat points. It's looking like a good game. This is looking as though we're going to do quite well. This is the one, I suppose you call it, drawback of the plane. I've cleaned up this area. I need to get back to the middle of the map to support our team there. And look at this, I'm doing 260 something kilometers an hour. Now I am climbing slightly, that's deliberate because I want to get back to my more optimum altitude of near 1,000. But yeah, it's not a very quick plane. It's okay, it's not sluggish and slow, but it's also not super fast. So you can't swap between one area of engagement and another easily. Having said all that, I think that the Hurricane 2 is a great plane and a great bit of fun. And if you want to, dabble in the wonderful world of playing multi-roles, it's quite a nice option. There's not a lot of things to compare it to. I've actually got a handful of other multi-roles in my garage at the moment, and I will be reviewing them in the very near future. I've got the Russian Yak 7, which will be coming your way quite soon. I've only just unlocked the German FW190A1. That one I'll be reviewing. I haven't yet got any of the American ones because there's three of them. There's the F4F Wildcat, the XP44 and the F4U1. I'll be getting those out quite soon as well. In terms of comparisons to premium, there's a couple. I have got the P40M105s, but I haven't done a review of it yet. But I did do a review of the kind of sister plane of this, the Hurricane 2D, a long time ago, back in November, and I was quite critical of it. In hindsight, I think it might play differently now that I've got better use of cannons, because the Hurricane 2D, and I will put a link to it in my video right now, the Hurricane 2D is basically the same airframe as this, but it has two massive 40mm cannons on the front. Now they do huge damage and they overheat incredibly quick, but if you can get them on target, they can shred planes. Now I might have been a little bit too critical of that premium plane too quickly, so I'm going to go back and take another look at that at some point in the near future and maybe give it a fairer judgment. I still don't think it's the best option to get at tier 5. I think there's better premium planes that will earn you cash far more easily. Things like the Spitfire 1A, which is often available for free. Things like the XFL1 are better premium planes at tier 5 in my opinion. But I think that the Hurricane 2D might be something that I've been judging a little bit too harshly, and I may well go back and take a second look at that. This game's winding out to a close now. We're just winding it up, and I feel that I've done my part. I have been shot down once, but yeah, on the whole, not a bad game. How do we do? a little under 11,500 combat points, the fairly standard set of awards you often get in a Class 4 fighter, and finished second on the team overall. What does that equate to in terms of outcomes? Well, this is a non-premium tech tree plane, so just under 50,000 credits is okay, and yeah, I can't really complain to that. Hurricane 2 then, I'd recommend it. I think it's a good little plane. Hats off to the guy in the Spitfire 5 by the way, and the guy on the other team, who both had really good games. Well done to them, and if they're watching, well done to you. As ever, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it's kept you informed as to whether it's worth pursuing some of the multi-role fighters from the British line. I'll be keeping my videos coming your way, and as I said, I'll be doing some more multi-roles from Tier 5 in the near future. Thanks very much for watching. Please do share and subscribe. Cheers now. Goodbye.